Hi, I'm Ina Calder with InDe'B Quilt Shop, and I'm here today to talk about Stripology rulers. Did you know that there are 3 different sizes of Stripology rulers? There is the mini, the regular Stripology ruler, and get it up here with one hand, the extra large Stripology ruler, and I use all of them. And they really are some of my favorite rulers when I have to do mega cutting of different things. So let me talk about each of these and talk about what I like about them and how they are useful to me. Okay, so let me pull up this board so that you can actually see these in action, or see them, what I'm talking about. Okay, so there we go. Trying to get this so you don't have any shadowing on this. Okay, this one is 21 actually inches, because this is 20 inches and then the edge of this is 21. So you can actually do 21 inches and it goes up to 13 inches up here. There are half cut increments, so you can see that every little slot here is a ½ inch, okay? Where your ruler thing can go in to do it. Now you can also cut 45 degrees and 60-degree angles with these. You can also square up any 12-inch block or a 13-inch, somewhat of a block. It does 12 inches to that one, so you can do that with this. But this one I use mostly when I'm doing 2.5-inch strips that would be used like in sashing. And that, or if I need 2.5-inch squares, and I'll show you how to do that. And that's when I pull out the big gun for doing that, okay? We'll use that a little bit later, so let me put this one away. Okay, then we've got the regular one. This is probably the one that I use the most, all right? It is 12 inches by 12 inches. Again, you can do, that 12-inch square. It also has this line right here. This diagonal line right there is really good to help you when you are actually squaring up, to make sure you've got it done through the diagonal as well as across all of that way, okay? So if I'm working with smaller pieces of fabric and maybe I only need 3 strips or 4 strips of 2.5-inch strips, then I do that. And on each of these, you can see down here in the bottom, it tells you that every square is 2.5 inches and every star is 1.5 inches. Okay. The other thing that I like about this one and the extra large Stripology ruler is this dotted line on the outside that is 1/4 inch. When I do my binding, I cut it at 2 1/4. That works the best for me, that I found. It gives me a nice, good, snug, tight binding. And so I use this one and I cut on the 2-inch mark to do that. And yes, I do have to move. I have to move every cut out of the way. But I know that when I cut this, it's going to be a straight line all the way through. My ruler's not going to move. I really love it because on the back side of these, I don't know that you can really see all of that, but there's all like grippers, the little rough edge there. So you're gripping your fabric clear across that whole entire ruler. In fact, even with the extra large Stripology ruler. Okay. Then we have the mini. And the mini is 6 inches by 7 inches. And again, it can do smaller blocks. It can square up smaller size blocks. Anything from 1 inch to 1/2 inch. But it also has some other increments on this side that are not on the other rulers. And these do it 1/4 inch, 3/4 inch, and that is when you're using this dotted line here. Then you can do those 3/4 increment and see where, kind of where you're out there. Okay. It has another very helpful 2 lines. In the front on this side, I'm going to get this a little closer so you can see that. It has an 1/8 inch and a 3/8 inch line. Okay. And it gives you those measurements down here. And what's really helpful with that is that, like, for example, I needed to cut some blocks. They needed to be 2 7/8 by 2 7/8, right? So how you do that is you line up your fabric on the 3/8, and then you go to the 2 1/2, and when you cut that, that's 2 7/8. Okay. You got to do some math here with some fractions to kind of figure that out. But just remember that 3/8 is not quite 4/8, which is a half of an inch. And then you can use those to cut and square up. I like also that it has a 1/8. Like maybe I need something to be 5/8 of an inch. Then I would cut on the 1.5, and I'm lining up here on the 1/8. So the 1/8 plus 1.5 gives me 1 5/8. So I hope the math helped you with that. But anyway, so I love these because you can use them. They help you to cut all of the, the measurements that we normally use in quilting. So I really like that. So let me just give you a demonstration cutting some of these today. And I'm going to cut some border fabric. I have some fabric here I'm going to do a border out of. I need to do some other strips fabrics out of this. I'm going to cut some binding. And then I'm going to cut all my background material for this quilt. This quilt is the Mon Cherie quilt by Lila Tuller, and it's with Riley Blake Designs. And it's just a beautiful, beautiful line, okay? And you would have seen me cut very quickly all of these if you caught that video. If not, go back and find that short so that you can see that, okay? So let me adjust this so that you can see down here. And this one we're going to be doing some strips. So I'm going to use the extra large because it's just borders. So what I do is I take this, I line up the top here at my fold with the top of this. I make sure I'm all square there. I usually try to line it up here just to make sure it's straight on my cutting board because that just helps visually with having to figure it out. Now the first line that you have here is this first cut line here, and I'm going to place that just barely cutting off that edge to give me a clean cut there. And then I'm just going to line this line up here, which is the 1 inch mark, just to give me a good line to go with so I know I'm square in both directions. And we're going to line this over a little bit more. Okay, that's got me all straight there. And I need 5 4.5 inch strips. So I'm going to cut first off this clean edge. Then I'm going to go do the 4.5, and you just have to do the math because I'm going to do 9, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 13.5 is the next one, and then half, and 1, 2, 3, 4, and just like that, I have cut all of my border strips that I need for this. Actually, I need 5. I need 1 more. I'm gonna pull this one out to do the last one because it doesn't take as much space. And I'm just gonna butt it up against the edge for the last one and then do that last strip. Okay, so there's my 5 strips all cut. Very simple and easy. And that's my leftover fabric, which I'm gonna toss over there. Okay, now, this is some of my fabric that I'm using to make the cherries in this quilt. And I need to cut 2 strips that are 2.5 inches wide, okay? And then we're going to subcut those. So I'm going to use the medium one for this. And I'm going to, again, place it on the edge and line it up on the bottom. Just find one of these skinny lines that works that way to line it up. So I've got that. Okay, and I'm going to do 2.5, and I need 2 of them. Whoops. You can tell it just, I hear that it did not go all the way through. So a tip on doing this, when you're cutting with these, you don't want to keep this flat like this. You want to come up on there because your blade is not straight out like this, but you need it to be more at an angle so that it gets down past the edge of this all the way through, okay? So then I have these 2 strips. I'm going to turn them, and that's my extra. And keeping them right here on this edge here, we're going to move this back over here so you can see that a little better. And just going to kind of line them up like that. I'm going to put the edge on here, and they need to be 2.5 inch. And see how I kind of lift this up as I'm placing it. I like get one corner on here and I just kind of move it so that I can place it like this. And I'm going to cut here. We need 2.5 inches of these. And every time I do a 2.5 inch cut, I'm going to get 4 of them, and I need a total of 26. So that is actually 16 right there. I think 4 and 4. No, that's 8. You got to do the math. Okay, so every square is going to be 2.5 inches. Just really easy. Go find that square and the next square, and there you go. Okay, and this is extra, and there is all of my squares that I need for the 2.5 inch squares of those. Okay, I put those out of the way, and then I'm going to cut. I'm going to do this bias binding first. Okay, so this is how you want to do when you're doing a bias binding. This is a 1/2 yard that I have of that. I'm going to cut it, fold it on the diagonal, and I'm going to make sure that I am past this selvage edge here. And then I'm going to fold it up on the edge here. Okay, and then I'm going to turn it like this, up and down. And I think this one will give me probably everything I need. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to cut on this edge and get rid of that fold that's there. Actually, I'm going to use the larger one because it is longer. And will give me the length that I need. It's a little easier to do this if you actually have a whole yard than to do this. So we'll cut this first line and then we'll figure this out. Okay, I'm cutting through 8 layers right there. So I just want to make sure that that was all cut off. Okay. And then I'm going to just fold it back on itself. And that might be too thick to get through to do the 2.5. Because I don't know if my blade will go down through the 2 and a 4th. I need the other one. Forgive me. Sorry. The 2 and a 4th. It's a good thing you can change your mind if you want to on this. Yep, that's going to be probably way too thick to cut through 16 layers at once. You might get through that if you had a one of the larger, like the 28 inch, not the 28 millimeter, not the 44 millimeter blades. Okay, I'm just going to cut this one. I'll cut the rest later. But anyway, so here is your bias strips. And you get this, you know, you get quite a few of them, and then you just have to sew them, and they're already cut at the diagonal, so it makes it really easy to sew them all together. So I'll finish cutting that in later. Okay, now we're going to cut the background. And backgrounds you usually have, you know, yardage, 2.5 yards, 2 1/4 yards. So I'm just going to pull this out. I'm going to lay it down. And make sure I'm all straight. I'm going to lay it down. I'm going to make sure that, and I like to just iron on my fabric to make sure everything is ironed well. And I'm just going to kind of line it up to the top, wherever it might be right there. Make sure we're kind of on a good spot here to start with. And I'm going to use the largest one. Okay, and this one to start with, I need 5 strips that are 4.5 inches wide. Okay. So again, we have to count up. This is 9. The next one is 13.5. Double check it as I look down there. 1.5. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. That's only 4. I'm going to have to cut one more. And I'm just going to kind of keep them together because I'm going to show you how I will cut them afterwards. So I'm just going to go to the 9 here and then cut at 13.5. Okay, I'm going to put that one down. I'm going to turn these, and I can possibly get, I don't think I can get all 13, maybe you can. Okay, so if I start right at the 1. So these I need to cut 4.5. I'm doing 4.5 inch squares. No, 4.5 by 5.5 by 5. Yes, I need 24 of them. So this is going to be 4, 8, and 12. So 2 of these will be just perfect. Okay, so I'm going to start here at the 1. I'm going to come over here at the 5 inch and the 10 inch. Okay, now one thing I'm pretty sure I'm going to have to do, because I was running into the holes on the end, is just double check to make sure I'm cut all the way through, and amazingly I am. Okay, so we're going to just throw these away. That is scraps. And here we go. Here's my 24 5 inch. And then I would label those, stick them in a bag. Okay. These ones I need to cut. And I need 24, 4.5 by 2.5 inch. Okay. So smaller amount, I'm going to use this ruler, because I think that will work a little bit easier with this. Line it up, make sure I'm cutting the fold off and within it, and I need 2.5 inch square, 2.5 inch strips. So we're going to do this, which gives me 8, and I need to do that at least 3 times to get 24 or 26. So we're going to do it one more time. So then I have some spares to go. So the extra, and there's my 2.5 by 4.5. Okay, see how fast that was? Just super, super fast. Okay, now we're gonna, again, line this up, make sure we're all straight. And when you are doing this much cutting and you put it back down and you're lining it up, you might need to have to cut yourself another clean edge on the end, because it might not all line up. So now I need 3 strips that are 2.5 wide. Okay, so smaller amount, I'm going to use my smaller ruler. Okay, so I have this one, and I need 3 strips, 2.5. So there's 1, 2, and 3. I'm going to just pull this out of the way, get rid of my clean edge strip. We're going to turn them all together, make sure they're all lined up again. And then I need to do, I need 48 2.5 inch strips. I think I bumped that out again. Oh, just, it's like that, right? Okay, so okay, I just want to make sure as I'm looking at this, I want to make sure that I'm on the block ones because I'm doing 2.5 inch strips. So I want to make sure that I've got the edge that I can do. Okay. So there we go. And I'm trusting that her calculations are good and correct. So I don't have to do the math myself. So there's my 2.5 inch squares. Okay, now I need, for the rest of this, I need 4. Okay, I still have a good clean edge. And I need 4 2-inch strips. So we're going to do 2, 4, 6, 8. And I just want to make sure that this one, I thought I could hear something that didn't go through, that one there. I'm going to pull this one out. I'm going to turn these around, line them back up. And if you have a large rotating mat, which I do, that sometimes would be really helpful too because you don't have to move anything. And then from this, I need to cut 26 2x3s. Okay, so let's do some math. We have, and then I need 26 2-inch strips. So this is 4, 8, 12, 16. That would be 32 if I did that by 3 inches. 3 inches, 6 inches. And then you have 2 inch and I need 26. 2. Might not be enough. Okay, I'm going to do just clean off edge. I'm going to do my first 3 cut because that gives me my 16. But I don't want to do the rest of them because I don't need 32. And I don't want to waste. So we have 16 here. 16, 20, 24, and then that would be 26. So I'm going to take one of these off. I'm going to do, and I'm going to pull one of these back. And I'm going to do a 3-inch strip. And that will give me my 26. Okay, now I need 26 2-inch squares. So I'm going to fold this one back on. And we're just going to add that one in. For this one, I'm going to use, because we're just doing 2-inch squares, I'm going to use my smaller one so that everything is all together. Okay, so we have, yeah, that's not going to be long enough. I'm not going to use that one. And then, of course, you always have a little extra, which is really nice that they give you a little extra. Because if you're like me, you always have some problems. And you need to like recut a piece or something. So it's always nice when you have a little bit of extra. So we are doing 2-inch squares. 2 and 4. And okay, let's see if I got the math right on this one. So we have 4 and 8. 8. That's 24. Probably cut more than what I needed, but there we go. And leftovers, scraps. So that should be enough for whatever we need. So there we are. Okay. So now I am, I'm the one-man show here. So now I'm completely ready to go. And look at that. It didn't take me hardly very long at all to actually cut everything out that I needed for the rest of that quilt. I'm completely 100% cut out. And now I can just go and get started sewing this quilt. So hopefully you have enjoyed the tutorial on these 3 rulers. They really are my favorites when I'm actually cutting out a quilt. Even if it has like some strange numbers or whatever, you know, like the 7/8 that I had to do, I can still use these rulers. They are probably some of the most used rulers when I am cutting out and having to do, you know, big long strips. Love them. You know, you're doing sashing, 2.5 inch strips, you can just and cut them all out. It's really fast. It's really easy. I highly recommend these rulers. They are the Creative Grids Stripology Rulers. We have all of them on our website, and you will find the links for them down below. Thanks so much for joining me today. Don't forget to subscribe and like, and don't forget to click the bell and change your notifications to all so that you always get a notification for when we post a video. So thanks for joining me today.